Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. And today I feel really honored because a gentleman whose exploits on the football field I admired has joined us, and he's gone on and on from playing football. His name is George Koonce Jr., and we could say Dr. Koonce, but he's not going to insist on that. He is the co-author of a book called Is There Life After Football? Surviving the NFL. His co-authors are James A. Holstein and Richard S. Jones, and the publisher is New York University Press. That's all admirable. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
We try to look at the books that we get and not get too excited, but this one really excited me for a couple of reasons. First of all, because when the publicist called me up and he said, I have a book called Is There Life After Football? And I said, probably not. And he then got very serious about how the book is terribly well researched and that it is co-written by a gentleman yourself who played for the Green Bay Packers. And
right.
there are three things here I think of primary importance to talk about right away. The first one is how the book was put together, the right. life history interviews, and the fact that three guys worked on it. What was the
right.
process of that?
Well, it was a lengthy process because let's go back a little bit. I graduated from Marquette in 2012 with a degree over in sociology, and my dissertation was the role transition of retired former NFL players. And so the idea kind of came out of that research.
I see.
And so we kind of collaborated, a couple professors at Marquette, sociologists. So we kind of pulled our heads and our thoughts together. We talked to over 1,000 former football players to get their thoughts and ideas. And
did you say 1,000?
Over 1,000 former
Holy
football
cow.
players.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's well researched, and I think we put together a lot of information because we have a lot of players. Let's talk about from a youth standpoint. There's about 8 million young boys playing Pop Warner or youth football around our great nation. And we have a lot of parents that may be feeling a little uneasy because of all the stuff they're hearing from concussions and to injuries to when players leave the game, they don't they lost of identity and they go into depression. So we wanted to kind of answer some of those questions a lot of parents may have.
Okay. Now, one of the interesting things in the book is the nature of the interviews. I think as researchers, you were very relaxed and I think generous to the interviewees. That some of the interviews are the kind that you might expect, formal, 30 minutes or more, and being set up in advance, et cetera, et cetera. But others were done when the players were available and willing to talk. And some of those might just go a few minutes. So you really did a lot of favors, I think, for the interviewees.
Oh, most definitely, because it was very therapeutic for me, for one, being a former football player myself and going through the transition, having issues with the whole loss of identity and going through the whole, depression and everything. So hearing other players, their trials and tribulations helped me to understand what I was feeling and what I was going through the whole process of leaving the game, the whole afterlife of sport.
And in the book, you write, or you guys write, the research is inspired by the NFL life and afterlife of former player George Koonce. Koonce initiated the project with his doctoral research, which we just mentioned. This research draws upon his many years of experience in and around the NFL and its players, as well as a decade coming to grips with his own retirement. We'll get to that in the third segment. Koonce was a starting linebacker on the Green Bay Packers Super Bowl teams of the 1990s. He also spent the year with the Seattle Seahawks at the end of his career. He now has a master's degree from East Carolina University, good old ECU as we call it, and a PhD from Marquette. He returned to Green Bay to work for the Packers, and he's also held positions in the athletic and advancement departments at Marquette. What in the name of heck is the advancement department?
Well, it's we're a bunch of fundraisers. Development.
Okay.
So it's development, advancement, fundraising, philanthropy, all same. It's all the same.
Okay. Now, you're currently vice president of advancement at Marian University, and you have an involvement with retired players, which has deepened as a result of your research. And you're presently a member of the National Football League Player Engagement Advisory Board. What the heck is that?
Well, the NFL has every team has a department or have a player or a former player or people or staff that helps with the player's transition into the NFL and their transition out of the NFL. And their title is Director of Player Development or Director of Player Engagement.
Okay.
And so there's 32 of those individuals, departments in the league, and then they used to report to a guy by the name of Troy Vinson at the NFL league office. So I am on an advisory board in which we talk about the different, issues and challenges and things we can implement to help those players that are currently in the National Football League with their transition, and also with the players that are that they don't want to leave the game, but sometimes the game leave you. Help them with their transition.
Yeah, it sure does. Obviously, many of your fellow players agreed to participate in the book or the study, whatever you want to call it. Were there many rejections?
No, not a lot of rejections, because a lot of the players, they was doing it because of the relationship they had with me. So some of them didn't feel comfortable using their name, so we didn't put that in the book. But they were happy to talk about their experience, and because a lot of players, they lived out the American dream playing in the National Football League. So it was great to talk about it. Some of them had some great things to say, and there was a couple that their transition wasn't as favorable. But all in all, it was a great experience, a great study, and a lot of great research that came out of it.
Is there life after football? Surviving the NFL is perhaps one of the richest and deepest sports books you'll ever read, and it pulls no punches, as we will see shortly.
Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Spreaker. Jim Foster, Conversations on the Coast. We're also on Twitter at Jim Foster, COC.
Is there life after football? Surviving the NFL. We're talking about that book, and we're talking to one of the three authors, George Koonce Jr., who used to play for a fairly good country football team called the Green Bay Packers. We don't particularly care for them here, but we're objective enough to have a Green Bay Packer player on the radio. A local player by the name of Charles Woodson, he's a Heisman Trophy winner, still plays for the Oakland Raiders. And he says in this book, I'm not quite ready to leave the game I love yet. But this is exactly the kind of information I need as that time approaches. And that's really true, because sooner or later, this comes, this ending of the career of football. And one of the terms that's used in the book, and it turns out that it's not terribly accurate, and that term is retirement.
Right.
Why is that not accurate, George?
Well, because I don't think players truly retire. Yes, you have a Michael Jordan or a Magic Johnson who, or Brett Favre who may retire, but the majority of the players.
Oh, wait a minute. Favre retires every third month or something like that. He's a great retire guy. But the point is, most guys don't retire. They're cut.
They're cut or waived.
Okay.
And because the majority of players still want to play. It's just that the National Football League, I don't think they're the perfect retirement. Most of the players, they don't leave the game leaves them.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
One of the overarching notions in the book that I think is most important is a word you call the bubble. What is the bubble and when does it start?
The bubble starts at the beginning of, it's constructed at a very early age. For me personally, it started when I was around 9 years old. I was very fortunate to play from 9 years old until I was 32. My mom got me involved in sport, but it didn't take you very long to see me running around on a football field that you could say that young kid or that little kid has some special talents. And from that time forward, as I moved from youth football until middle school, high school, college, and pros, I lived in a bubble. And that bubble consisted of it was a structure and it was a culture all in itself that was kind of privy or only the privileged players and coaches could be a part of it. And when that structure and control left, when the bubble kind of burst, that's when I was kind of lost. And so many players around the country are lost because they don't have that support system in place to help them through everyday life.
Yeah, as you write in the book, when NFL players leave football, they encounter a version of culture shock. They aren't just retiring from a job or a career. They're leaving a way of life, entering a world that is foreign to them. They know the language, sort of, but this is a wonderful way to put it, but they speak a distinctive dialect. And one of the things that is lost at the moment of retirement is the 24/7 aspect of the life of the pro football player.
Right. The special attention that players receive works to isolate them from the normal social routines and obligations of everyday life. You look at the players in the 60s and the 70s, 80% of them worked on the off season. 2014, only 23% of the players work on the off season. So there has been a paradigm shift over the last 15, 20 years in the National Football League.
And what happens at the end? When a player leaves the league, everything changes. Not just the money or the lifestyle. The codes and principles by which players live in the NFL bubble no longer apply. And players are no longer part of the locker room culture, etc., etc. That's got to be a terrible moment.
Oh, most definitely, because players tend to feel a profound loss. Players frequently grumble that you never leave on your own terms. They are now adrift without a dream. Without football, many players find themselves at loose ends. Many players navigate the end of their careers without a hitch. But a lot of them struggle because there is no perfect exit for the player.
And they're leaving what is to them a perfect place. One of the points made in the book over and over again is that this wanting to play in the NFL is a dream. And it's a dream that starts at a young age, middle school, say, or even younger. And when it's over, the dream is not just shattered, it's gone, disappeared.
Right.
It's a terrible situation. Go ahead.
It's a terrible situation. But, when you're in the bubble and when you're in the game, there's nothing like it. And it's unbelievable. But everything has to come to an end. It's unfortunate that for NFL players, the end comes fairly soon because the average football player plays about 3.5 years. And so you have guys that are 26, 25, 27 years old experiencing the same things that someone that may be 65 years old, who's much, much more mature than them, are going through when you're 65 years old and you're retiring from a career or a job that you've had for many, many years. A lot of football players that's 26, 25 years old are going through those same things.
Well, is there life after football? Surviving the NFL does get into the whole picture, does tell the whole story. So when we come back next time, we're going to talk about what's called in the book the end. And we'll do that in a moment.
Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Spreaker. Jim Foster, Conversations on the Coast. We're also on Twitter at Jim Foster, COC.
George Koonce is our guest today on Conversations on the Coast. I will call you Dr. George. I like it. Dr. George Koonce, formerly of the Green Bay Packers. He's talking about a book he co-authored with James Holstein and Richard Jones called Is There Life After Football? Surviving the NFL, and it's published by New York University Press. That gives all the identification that the publisher would like when we send them a copy of this. One of the people who has something nice to say about this book is a fellow by the name of Michael Kimmel. He's the author of a book called Manhood in America, A Cultural History. He says, perhaps the cruelest irony of an athlete's life is that he must retire just as most guys' careers are taken off. How athletes make sense of their life course and sustain their masculine identity is the subject of this engaged and entertaining study. One of the interesting things about that, as I look at it on the back jacket, George, is that the word retire in that sentence is in quotes. And that's
right.
That's really accurate, isn't it?
Right, because it's not really, it's more like you're fired, not retired.
Uh-huh.
The end is seldom straightforward. It is unlike most any other retirement. In fact, the term retirement seldom describes the end of an NFL career because players often don't realize that their careers are over. It took me about 2 years to realize that, George, your phone is not going to ring anymore. You're not going to get that phone call asking you to come back to play.
But that was done in, what should I say, not a very professional way, not a very kind way with respect to your own story. I mean, you were not told about this in advance. You were sent home, or you went home at the end of the season, expecting to be coming back, and the call to come back never came. Isn't that about what happened? Yes,
but that's what happened. But that happens 95% of the time with players around the NFL. You're not really told that your career is over with. They're on. It's all about business. They're on to the next player.
That's
trying
right.
to win a championship.
It's what they talk about now is the next man up.
Yes.
Yeah. On page 89, but there was no fairy tale ending to Koonce's career or Koonce's career crisis. Managing his apartments, which you were encouraged to do by your now wife, and going back to school for his master's degree, Koonce continued to work out, continued to stay ready. That was the phrase, stay ready. You might get the call. And midway through the 2002 NFL season, Tunisia, that's your wife, finally confronted him. George, you're done. It's all over. And that's when Koonce didn't speak to Tunisia for a couple of weeks, which is understandable. But you guys survived it, right?
We got through it. You know, it was a very tough period in my life, and that's when I had a car accident. And but she stuck by me, and unfortunately for us, she passed away back in 2009 from a
breast
battle. From
cancer.
Breast cancer.
Yeah.
But she was brutally honest with me. She had my best interest at heart, and I'm so thankful I had someone that saw greatness inside of me, saw me more than just a football player, and pushed me towards doing some extraordinary things for my community.
You still looking at page 89, George?
Yes, yep. I have page 89 in front of me. Yep.
I want you to read the ITAL part, which is, your words.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
I did the interview?
Yes, please.
I did the interview, and I thought I've done well, and they offered me the job for $36,000, but I was disappointed. Tanisha was waiting for me as I crossed the campus, and she asked me about the interview. I said it went okay, and she asked if I got the job. I said, yeah, they offered me the job, but for only $36,000. I told them I would have to think about it. Tanisha said to me, how much they're going to pay you? I said $36,000. She said, how much are you going to make if you don't take the job? I said, nothing. She said, do you know how much people make in the real world? I said, no. She said, turn your ass around and go back there and sign that contract. I did, and that's probably when I truly knew I was never going to play again.
Do you recall how you felt at that moment when
yeah.
you really knew you weren't ever going to play again?
Yep, that was the time.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Yeah.
What did that feel like? Were you, crushed, despairing?
Empty. Yeah, empty. Sense of loss. Everything that you go through when someone passes away. I was in denial for I was in denial for a long time, and depression set in, and but at that moment in time, after I had that conversation with Tanisha, that's when I accepted that George, your playing career is done. It's time to move on to the next chapter, the next phase in your life, and I've had a great ride since then. It's been awesome.
What a blessing is Tanisha. What a blessing.
She was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some marvelous little anecdotal sayings in this book, and one of them that stuck in my mind is that is succinctly put: with retirement, your dream is in the rearview mirror. And that's
right.
A hell of a place to be.
Yep. Wow.
One of the final sections is called "Playing Without a Playbook." What do you mean by that?
Well, from 9 years old to 32, I kind of had people telling me what to do, people providing me with structure. My day was mapped out from the time I woke up until the time I went to bed. And that lasted basically from 9 years old to 32, almost 23 years in that marriage, in that whole structured environment. Mm. And then when that playbook was taken away, the structure of it was gone. That's when I was lost, because my life was structured around football since I was a little boy. And it was very, very eye-opening for me when I was playing without a playbook.
We've talked a lot about many different things in this program today, but there's much more to be learned, grasped, and enjoyed. All you got to do is get your copy of Is There Life After Football? Surviving the NFL by James Holstein, Richard Jones, and our guest, George Koonce Jr. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Spreaker. Jim Foster, Conversations on the Coast. We're also on Twitter at Jim Foster, COC.